right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Beardo's Media. You are officially watching the final episode of season 3. How are you, Ali? Are you getting emotional?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Season 3, huh?
Season 3 it is, yes. So this is the final season. So final episode of
ना कर
season
यार
3. This
ना
is not the
कर
final.
क्या करना
Tuff,
है
tuff,
पापा ना करया
tuff,
करो इस
tuff.
तरह.
Yeah, you don't want to make slip-ups like that. So we're back, and we're going to go on for a short break as we usually do before we come back for the next season. So, as a season finale, I'm just going to put, for those of you who are watching live, I'm going to put the link for you to join us live on the screen. So, if you are watching this and you want to have your say, today is open mic night. Tonight, even is open mic night. So you are welcome to join us on screen for a few minutes, and we can ask you questions on this particular topic, and you can have your say. The topic tonight is go back to where you came from. So go back to where you came from, Ali.
Are
Where
you
did you come
telling me
from?
like do I I've come over there?
Where did you come from? Really, where did you come from, and what would it take to go back? And if going back is even an option or a strategy, because I know you've briefly spoken about this before. So I'm wondering how serious you would actually be about going back. I mean, because you were born and bred here, right?
Here-ish. So
What does that
yeah,
mean? You got long enough legs to want to be in one continent and one in the other, huh?
no. Yeah, so in the west coast of Ayrshire, Scotland. But yeah, you could say here. It's not far off, is it?
Yeah, it's okay. So
If we're talking UK, then yeah.
yeah. So in the UK, so you what would you class yourself? First gen, second gen, third gen? What would you class yourself? Migrants.
I think we come on the second generation, don't we? So it wasn't us that moved here. So we obviously we were born into this country. Our parents migrated. So yeah, second generation, I guess.
That's Yusra says, well, I am half Yemeni, half Balochi, born in Tanzania, living in the UK. So go back where? That'll be interesting.
just go on a world tour. Seriously, just enjoy it. Go to all of the places.
You know, one of the reasons I felt this would be a good discussion is because this discussion actually came about. Well, we've had this discussion on our normal conversations, but this discussion actually came about whilst I was, like when you're on the school run and you see parents having discussions and having their own chit chats. They talk about mothers on the gates, but fathers have their own chit chat as well. And I was having this conversation with some guys who are from the Kurdish, mashallah, a couple of brothers who have done really, really well for themselves. So they go back regularly to Iraq as well and the areas surrounding where they've got family. So his idea was, you know what, one day I'll go back. And I said to him, you know what, Hiwa, this is what they all say. We as Asians came into this country thinking the same thing. Most Asians came into the country thinking, okay, they'll make a good life, they'll earn a few bob and send it back home and make something back home which entices them to go back or establish themselves back home and then migrate back. Then what ends up happening is they end up getting married, they end up having children. Their children start having, needs like educational needs, and they feel that, okay, you know what, education is really good here, and we can send them for education. So we might as well stay back a little bit longer before we end up going back again. So that temporary stay starts to extend already. So they've gotten married, they've got kids. Now the kids have grown up. The kids end up being in higher education, or they get married and they start having their own kids. And then they think to themselves, gosh, we've spent in the blink of an eye so many decades here in the hope that one day we'll go back. But we've established ourselves so strongly here that my family is here, my kids are here, now my grandkids are here. Those people who I knew back there are no longer there. Where is home?
Yeah,
You're in this
yeah,
country.
and even if they're there, they're not the people that you knew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're in this country, and the bizarre thing is, visibly we look different to the native Brits because of our color, right? Some
Mm,
people will get. I mean, I noticed somebody put a comment in my post when I put this up yesterday. Um, Sherry mentioned that she had faced racism because of her name, her Polish name, her heritage. Although she was born and bred here as well, she doesn't even look different. Just because
mm,
of her name, she'd faced racism. So we are people who are of migrant communities who have different color skins and complexions are visibly different. Here,
mm,
we are not always accepted 100%. We look foreign. When we go back home, in inverted commas, what do they
mm,
say? Here comes the foreigner.
hmm.
So where do we actually belong? Where is home?
That's a good question. Um, and I don't want to go cliche and just say home is where the heart is or whatever, but you know what? There's meaning behind that because home really is where you choose to set up camp.
Mm, mm,
But the point that you mentioned earlier about the Kurdish brothers wanting to go back, I think you're right. I think initially everybody sets up or sets off with that intention. Things may be changing now ever so slightly. Like people might be moving now um, for good, but that was never the case when our parents were moving. You know,
mm,
they understood their goals and their objectives was, purely for economic reasons. You know, they were economic migrants. They came here so that they could work,
mm,
they could provide a better life to those back home. And once, everything at home was settled, the big zimmerdari and the big responsibilities were met,
mm, mm.
they'd go back and then enjoy the fruits of their labor.
But
Um,
how many have actually done that?
this is the thing. I could probably count on one hand the examples that I know, and I'd still have a few fingers to spare.
I know
Um,
people who have attempted it, but they've come
yeah.
back.
The thing is, they came here thinking, right, I need to get my siblings married. Uh,
Mm,
I need to fix the roof. I need to, do these sort of things, or
mm,
build a slightly bigger house, whatever, whatever.
mm,
But when they came here, and perhaps the life that they accustomed their loved ones to back home just kept getting, what's the word, like bigger. Do you see what I mean? Like,
mm,
you know,
mm,
they just introduce them to a new luxury and then another and then another. And it's not just those individuals themselves. I'm not talking about just our parents, but society as a whole back home in Pakistan, India, wherever that may be. Um, they were they're really developing nations and they're developing pretty fast. So
mm,
those very few basic needs um, soon just catapulted into like a million different things.
mm.
So what happened to the poor uncles and that were here is they just got vacuumed into it. They just got in deeper and deeper and deeper to the point where if they now decide to pack up and go back because they think they're now out of poverty and they've achieved whatever they wanted, it now turns out that the people back home, your loved ones that you're providing for, love you, but they'd rather you stay over there and give them the life than you come back and cut off their sort of, their funds and their supplies. Um, and that's
Because
tragic.
they've become accustomed to a certain lifestyle, which you
Y-
have helped them with,
Yeah,
even though back here you might be struggling to make ends meet for
yeah,
yourself and your family.
yeah.
I've seen
It's
that
true.
happen a lot.
Yeah,
So
and it does happen,
self-sacrificing.
and overly so. I think overly so. Part of the reason was, look, our grandparents and our parents were, honestly speaking, they were warriors, man. They were Iron Men. You know,
Mm.
they could go. They would come over here and they'd probably go like a day at a time without eating.
Mm.
But when they'd call back home or write a letter back home, or send a cassette recording. Do you remember those days when
I
you'd send
remember that. I
cassettes?
still got some. I've still got
Have
some.
you? So
Yeah.
they'd send a cassette recording or a message back home and say, "Yeah, fantastic. You know, we're living it up in the UK. Everything's good. We're fine. You lot just tell us what you need." And they just, sucked it up, deep breath, just carried on, carried on. But
Mm.
maybe if there was better communications back then, maybe if we had, the technology that we're using now in video calls and all the rest of it, the
Mm.
people back home would have been clued on a little as to how exactly they were living here. You know, they
Yeah.
could send
True.
now. Now we send pictures of the burger that we eat or the food that we're having or whatever.
Yeah.
Back then, honestly, I know numerous examples of people who used to eat like roti from 2 days ago, just chomping into an onion or a green
Yeah.
chili, or
Yeah.
or just dipping it into water just to soften it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a massive contrast to you know the chicken tandooris and everything else, and that was going on back home that this person was paying for.
Mm.
And I think
True.
that gap just became too much, and it just became impossible. You're right. Then obviously, they got married, they had kids, and then it just changed the dynamic again, didn't it? Because you can't
Then it
go
wasn't
back
about
home.
them, just
No.
them or their family
Yeah.
over abroad. Then it was about their immediate family as well.
Yeah.
So the idea then being that, you know what, first of all, we come here, we better ourselves, earn some money, send the pounds over, get
Mm,
establish ourselves properly over there, and then we'll come back,
mm.
go back home. But that never happens. Question is though, Ali, what needs to happen for them now to do that, or is it too late?
Let me give you my own example. Yeah. Um, my, my dad was one of three brothers. You
Mm.
know, he came here at the age of 12. I think he was 12 when he came over.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, I think he went to school for about a month or so, but then the first letter landed from back home saying, chat gir parai, or whatever, the roof has collapsed, or this has
Mm.
happened, or, the goat
Mm.
died, or I don't know. So that, naturally he went about doing what he had to do. He quit school and he went out and got a job. And he even tells me to this day, like, he goes, but the pot that I used to wash at the restaurant
Mm.
was so big that I would literally sit inside this button, this big
Wow.
pot, washing it,
Wow.
yeah, and just in tears. Because think of a 12-year-old, think of a 12-year-old nowadays.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
you could be late picking them up from school and they'll have a mini panic attack. This man had to leave. His dad had already passed away. My granddad had already passed away at this
No,
point.
no, no.
Allah grant him Jannah.
Um,
And he had two younger brothers who were maybe 5 years younger than him, so they would have been what, 6 or 7 at the time, and
mm.
then his mom. So a 12-year-old who'd never spent a day or so more away from his mother and his brothers to
Mm.
fly abroad,
Mm.
and there's just no way of going back, is there really?
Mm.
Because you've got to provide for them, you've got to do everything.
Mm.
You can't even talk to them, communicate with them.
Yeah.
It's do you know what? It's unimaginable. But anyway, my dad's gone back now. So my dad's two brothers, Mila Grant and Jenna, they passed away
Amen.
a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
So it was just my dad left now, and obviously his
Mm.
mum is quite elderly. Our dadima is quite elderly, and my dad is the last of her remaining children. So we said to him, "Look, Dad, just you got to go back now. You got to go and take care of her and live there." And it's coming up to 2 years now. I think that's the
Mm.
most that he's ever stayed there, like in his since he left from the age of
Okay,
12 to the age of
this is
60 something
okay.
now.
This is interesting because are you saying that he's now decided to go back? Is it more of a permanent decision now, or is it is it another reason? Is it because of this illness, he feels he needs to be there at least for this period of time, or does he plan to stay there a lot longer?
So the thing is, he's plans to stay there until his mum is around. Yeah,
Okay,
because she's in her 80s, and he's taken it upon himself to look after her. But coming on to 2 years, and I speak to my dad, almost every other day, and he goes, "Look, I cannot describe to you, or I cannot explain the feeling in the way that my heart is split,
Mm.
because I get it. I'm here to look after my mom, and I'm doing that, but my wife, my children, the life I've
Yeah,
lived for the past 40 odd years, and
yeah.
I'm like, you know what?
Oh, that's gotta really be difficult, hasn't it? You've got your wife
Yeah,
and children who you've
yeah,
set up a life with, back
mm,
in the UK, and you've got the
mm,
the woman who gave you birth
yeah,
on the one side, so you've got to be
yeah,
split, haven't you?
yeah.
Um, you know what? That's got to be heart wrenching, and I think this is genuinely a dilemma. I think we have a guest who is waiting to come on screen. We'll bring them in now because they have an experience of their own. Let's bring them in. So we have Yasser here. Yasser, welcome to Bedo's Media live on screen. Thanks for joining us.
Hello,
Walaikum
Walaikum
salam.
salam. Very good, thanks. We were glad that you've also joined the Beardos in more ways than one.
I wouldn't call that a beard. I think it's just a slightly overgrown stubble for now.
No,
Well,
no,
shaped
you're too
quite
modest.
nicely there, and I think it's been there for quite a while as well. Thanks for joining us, Yasser. So you have an experience of your own. You went abroad, and you went with the family, and that was quite recently, right? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so obviously, pandemic was like well in its in its dream back in February, March this year, and my wife's immediate family, they're all based in Pakistan, and they weren't health-wise, they weren't too well, so we thought, with the pandemic on at the moment, kids aren't at school. I was fortunate enough to work from home, so I thought, let's just go to Pakistan and try remote working from there. And kids were already
Go to home away from
virtual
home, yeah.
schooling. Yeah, kids were already virtual schooling.
Yeah.
So taking into account that 5 hours, 4 hours time difference, I thought, let's why not just go to Pakistan for a couple of months and maybe see out the pandemic. But we stayed out there for about 2 months, and I think, like I said on my on the Facebook comment the other day, the internet speed, mashallah, was fantastic. So no, I couldn't blame the internet for not working or not logging onto my to my employers, and even from I suppose, going back to your point, do we go back home, or can we go back home, or do we fit in when we go back home? I think this modern day and age with this technology, I think we're quite flexible. We're a global workforce, really. Or for those, alhamdulillah, for those of us, fortunate enough to be in that position, you can, pick up your laptop, pick up even, your family and kids as well, really. They are your number one priority as well. I've been abroad without them before, but I thought this time I'll take them with me. And
Slough doesn't really count as abroad, does it? It feels like abroad.
Obviously, he's been working in Dubai for a while as well, hasn't he? So that's without the family. Question is, Yasser, whilst you were abroad, do you think you could settle there physically?
To be honest, I honestly think you could. As a British-born and British settled person here, I think again, it's all about the environment. I think if I stayed in the village, it would be quite hard because of the luxuries that we're used to, really.
I mean, you guys are from Kashmir, aren't you? Yes.
Yeah, so we've got ours is even a bit more weird situation because we're originally from Kashmir, but when they built the dam back in the 70s, we got moved from Kashmir,
yes.
and my grandparents at that time chose to move to Pakistan, or in Sagoda in Pakistan. Obviously, they probably saw more business opportunities or something in there. I know a lot of my cousins stayed in Azad Kashmir, and then from there they moved to England. But a lot of our family moved to Sagoda.
Tell us about the story that brings you guys here in the UK. Like, do your parents ever speak about, okay, look, we came to do this, that, or the other, and then
to be honest, it wasn't my parents really. Yeah, it wasn't my parents that came. It was grandparents.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
Didn't see, but it was my granddad who I think took the initial step. My dad was only about 4 or 5 at that time when they came.
Was this going back in the 60s or 50s or something like that?
60s, I think it was. 60s, yeah, late 60s. And,
my father came in the 60s as well, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So my father, he's in his early 60s or mid 60s at the moment. Yeah. So I think around that time.
Your father's the same age as my eldest brother, if not younger.
Okay.
A few years younger, yeah, he is, yeah.
No way, really.
You could be a nephew. I'll take that over.
Do you hear the stories from, or did you hear the stories from grandparents or parents that they say, look, we came here to do this and we were going to go back, or we just...
Yeah, so that's the real question, isn't it?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with my granddad, and there I can even remember when I was, in junior school or year 7 at DeFerris, secondary school. Parents always had that idea that one day we will settle back home. And I even remember, I think I was in year 7 or year 6 in junior school. Me and my sister went over to Pakistan, and Dad said, "Oh, let's try you out in school in Pakistan for about 2 months."
Oh wow, okay.
But that didn't go down well. So within about a month or so, we were back. So I think that generation did still have still had something in there to to go back to your roots, because I think
what about your generation? What about your generation?
So I was just going to say that.
Yeah, because your grandfather came. And he obviously came to seek opportunities. Your father even attempted to go back by having you and your sister settle into school, which wasn't
I think my
didn't
father,
go well. What about you? What about you?
He's probably influenced. Yeah, I think I'm probably looking at best of both worlds, because like I said, with my work situation, because if you think about it, from our parents or grandparents' work situation, their I guess ideal was let's work till we're 50, 60, and then we'll retire or move back home. But from our perspective, I think we can go wherever we want. Alhamdulillah, with my personal work situation, just have to pick up the laptop, and as long as I've got some clients who are willing to pay the bills, then alhamdulillah, I'm quite flexible. Obviously, I have to take into account the kids' schooling situation and missing situation. But
so I guess our reasons for staying around now are completely different to what our parents or grandparents would have been. So now it really is a choice, isn't it? It's a choice that we make. It's a conscious decision to just remain here.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at it, our grandparents, their reasoning to stay here was financially motivated, and to send money back home, back in them days. But for my situation, we're
just to keep the money in the pockets now, isn't it?
It is, and I think alhamdulillah, from our side, it's probably maybe it's more of the adventure side, maybe going back and seeing where our parents were brought up, where our grandparents were brought up, see that side, that side of the world, and even give and I think it's important to give our kids that experience as well, because from my personal perspective, I've always, with my wife as well, we're always keen to take the kids back home for them to see that different, that's first or second, third world type of country where the kids aren't used to the luxuries of hot water coming out the tap or TV being on 24/7. I mean, all that Pakistan is coming, is progressing quite
You'd be
well.
surprised, yeah.
But still in the in the little villages out there, they still haven't got gas connections or even hot water connections. Still got mosquitoes and whatever else you have to batten out there.
Yeah, it's true. Good point. And I think our children are going to be the first generation that grow up understanding that this is now home. We'll show them where the roots and heritage is, but it's always sort of implied that that's a holiday destination, and it's a history lesson. But for our kids, this is very much home now. I think for the vast majority, it's not in their minds that we're here on a mission and we might possibly be going back. And I think that really changes their mentality. Not just mentality, but it almost changes their identity, if you could call it that. Because, I know from our people or from our generation, our age group, where, growing up, we didn't really identify as English or British, or, we wouldn't don like a Union flag or whatever. But for our kids now, that's changed, hasn't it? I think
I think some are changing. Maybe some are still keeping. I think it all comes down to the family, family education and family background. Because if the family, the parents, the uncles, aunties, if they're keeping that connection and the kids are seeing that, then I think then you'll see our kids, they'll still be supporting Pakistan cricket, when England Pakistan cricket matches on.
Yeah.
They'll still support Pakistan.
True story. I got told off at school, I remember, by my English teacher for supporting Pakistan over England in the World Cup in 1992, I think it was. I got told off. Yeah, she was like really, and she told all of us Pakistanis off.
Wait, didn't we win in 92?
I think that's the one we won, wasn't it? With Imran Khan as the captain. Yeah.
Actually, you should go back and see her sometime. Just
yeah. So we got. I remember it. I remember clearly, and I thought to myself, that's probably the first time I consciously had to question where my belonging was. Consciously, I was only like what 11, 12 years old. That's got to, and I suppose that's why it left a bit of an impact.
Our kids are not going to have that. For our kids, it's supporting England or supporting whatever here is almost first nature. Even so much as their mother tongue is probably English now.
This is such an accurate comment, right? I remember my dad saying exactly the same thing. But Yasir says, I remember my dad saying to us when we were little that we need a home back in Pakistan for when Margaret Thatcher kicks us out of the UK. I remember my dad saying something similar. And I think a lot of us were told the same story. And even that's a really good point, though, because would it ever, do you think, come to a stage where we feel compelled to leave as migrants who have settled here? Do you think it'll ever come to that? Because it's something that's been spun to us. I'm sure most of us of our generation or my generation for a very long time. There might be a time when you may not be kicked out forcefully, but things will become so difficult to bear that you may have feel that there's no other choice but to leave.
That's the thing. I think that my dad's approach or sort of view on this was ever so slightly different. He always said this to me and to probably anybody else. He goes, look, they'll never kick us out.
Yeah, same here. Yeah,
they'll make it so unbearable, difficult for us to be us.
Yeah,
So anybody who chooses to dilute or water down or to assimilate will be fine. But anybody who wishes to hold onto any sort of their culture, their ways, their tradition, their faith, it will just be made near impossible for them. To
and you know
remain
what?
here.
I don't think we're too far from there right now. If you think about the way the Western world has evolved, If you look at the policies implemented, I mean, look how the hijab has been banned in France, and the way things are being implemented, it's looking that it's like it's getting towards that stage.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this is probably why, even as a I consider myself second generation. My father came in the 60s, so I'm probably the youngest of the second generation here. I would still say it's probably a good idea to at least have a base in a country where you originate from, for that rainy day. You just never know.
Yeah.
I think the
And I
problem
think
is
this.
also you got to. Sorry.
No, go on. Yes.
Then I go on.
I think what I found personally is, whilst I was over there for the 2-month stint, was how do you think that the people over there will allow you to fit in as well in your so-called base country? So whether that be Pakistan or India or any other country, I think as soon as they know, you speak that Western tongue, or you got a slight Latinist.
Yeah. See,
just the way, mate, just the way you look, they can visualize that you're not from there. This is why one of the points put on this particular topic was you're a migrant here and a foreigner over there. So when you're over there, you're still the foreigner. When you're here, you're visibly the migrant. And this is an interesting comment which James has put up. He went to school with me. We're in the same class. Good evening, chaps. It's interesting to me, your take on this topic. I went to school with Majid, and I wouldn't only ever have considered here as his home. I can only speak for myself, but I think our generation were the first to really grow up multicultural and recognize that you have heritage, culture, and traditions from elsewhere, but are still British. Now, that's a very fascinating thing to read as somebody who I went to school with, how they would perceive me. Do you know what I mean? And it's interesting to know these things because it gives you an insight as to what people are thinking, how they perceive things, how you have been interacting with them. And sure, I mean, me and James went to school together, so we've known each other since we were kids. So it's no surprise that James would have that view. Whilst also appreciating that I also have a different culture and I recognize a different heritage. And that brings us on to what Yasser was saying. Do you ever feel that you'll be able to settle there? Now, I think some people could, but I don't think everybody could. I think those who desire to settle there will find a way. I have a very, very close family friend, my age, born and bred here, went over to Pakistan to kind of move his business operations there to sell British cars to the Pakistani high-end kind of clientele.
Nice.
Eventually, he started a food business as well, and now he's in construction as well. And just the steel alone that he puts in a building, it can just give you an idea. It would cost you several £1 million just of steel to construct those buildings. And he's doing really, really well for himself. But one of the things that's distinct about him is that he's very, very multicultural in his approach, in his language, in his demeanor. He mixes in really well over there. Do you know what I mean?
It's not Nawaz Sharif, is it? I'm sure he's
that's a good guess,
he was
actually.
food business and then he moved on to
No,
steel construction.
actually, it's not my age, and he wasn't born and bred here. This is a guy called Ijaz. This is a guy
possibly.
this is a guy called Ijaz, and if you're watching Ijaz, assalamu alaikum. Him and his family, beautiful people, amazing. And you know what the beautiful thing is? They're very, very humble, from humble beginnings, but also at the same time they've done really well for themselves, but they've been able to mix in between the different cultures. This is the key thing, Yasser. When you said, do you think you'd be accepted there? I have been in my interactions whilst I've been there. Alhamdulillah, I'm quite fluent in the dialects, different dialects of Punjabi. So, and you know what they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans. When I'm there, I'm like them. I don't ask for special treatment. Like a lot of British people there who complain about the heat so much and they want special treatment all the time. And of course, you're not going to be able to settle there if that's your attitude or if that's the way you're going to come in with a mindset. But if your mindset is to mix in with them and be like them, then there is no us and them. Then it's us.
I mean, mutual friend Imran, I don't know if Imran's watching, he was settled over there.
Yeah, Chishti Sahib,
Chishti Sahib. I think it's, I think the dynamics of our upbringing and our, whatever we've learned while we've been in England, and God bless our parents. They've taught us, the different languages, the multiculturalism, and remembering, what is back home, what the culture is, and also the several visits that we've all probably done whilst we were kids. Because I think without those trips, I don't think we probably would have that multicultural side with us.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, on that note, I think I'm going to have to love you and leave you.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Sure.
There's a very important football match coming on in about 5 minutes for Liverpool.
That's probably more important, isn't it?
Take care, inshallah. Thank you for joining us. Yes.
I'll catch you soon, brothers. All right.
Exactly. Thank you for.
Yeah, I think on that note, that was just mentioned at the end, would we be accepted back home? I think we sort of exaggerate on, how much we're really sort of seen as foreigners. I think that soon wears away. Anybody who's moved back home and actually sort of tried to fit in and treated it like home is accepted rather quickly. Now, if you treat it like a holiday resort, like we usually do, that's the difference, isn't it? That is it. And then naturally, so you're going to get that.
Yeah, 100%. And I've seen that so many times. I've seen people go from here with the intention that they want to enjoy it. But what they forget is that's our ancestral kind of back. I mean, look, the thing is, with so much migration over the last couple of 100 years, or even the last 1,000, only 1,000 years, it's not a lot, in the grand scheme of things, if you think about how old Earth is and how old humanity is, Pakistan or India might just be the beginning. I was talking to friends and stuff and even family with my background being a Mughal, for example. It goes back to Mongolia, Turkic Mongolian, a bit of a hybrid, right? So, you think to yourself, well, where exactly is home if your heritage is from one place? My ancestors mainly from Agra in India. They migrated to Pakistan, settled there. My father came here. I was born here. How far back do you want me to go when people generally say go back to where you came from, or on that note?
See, this is why I disagree. I've just never understood nationalism at all. I don't understand why we need such identities. People say they're proud to be British or proud to be Pakistani. Why? Like, why do you need that label? Why do you need that particular identity? I think the way the world is now, it's such a small place that you should be able to move freely. And, regardless of, okay, someone's decided that this is the border now. Anybody on that side is now a proud Indian. Anybody on this side is proud to be Pakistani. Anybody on that side, is an Afghan or whatever. I think a lot of it is silly. A lot of it is quite silly.
Well, I think when it comes to being a proud Brit or proud Pakistani or proud whatever national, is different to promoting nationalism and nationalistic identity as a superior identity to anything else. There's nothing wrong, in my opinion, of saying you're proud of where you live or where you come from or where, the environment you're in. Obviously, if you've got something to be proud of over there, right? But what I find problematic is when a national identity becomes bigger than a human life, or bigger or more important than humanity and our humanitarian obligations. That's what I have a problem with. And I think
that's what it leads to, doesn't it? Really.
I mean, for some people, yes, but not for everybody.
Okay. What's a good example of someone who's a proud Brit or a proud Englishman?
No.
What does that even look like?
No, that's more of a straw man, isn't it? Because if you think about it, you could be proud of the way your sewage system works in England. As an example, I'm proud to be British, or I'm proud of our British. You can be proud of elements within Britain, the way you live, for example, or proud of having free health service, That, I'm proud that we have that. But I see where you're coming from when you say, what does a proud Brit look like? Or for what reason? This is a very complex question and it can't be answered just like that. What I'm saying is, it's okay to be proud of some of the achievements of a state in which you live. But when you give superiority to a state or an identity of a state over humanity and humanitarian needs, that's when it becomes problematic. Do you know what I mean? I mean,
I think that's what it leads to, really. I mean, the majority of people that are sort of, and I'm not talking just about in this country. I don't want to be unfair and pick on the English or whatever. In most countries, in most places in the world, the people who are very into their patriotism or patriarchy, whatever it's called, patriotic, and are quick to say fly their flag or say this or say that. They're probably the least contributing people to that country. Like for here, we've got the council estates, where you've they'll have an England flag in the window, or they'll have an EDL banner or whatever, yeah. But bruv, you're on the dole. Like, what are you proud of? You know what I mean? Like, are you proud of something that happened 100 years ago, 50 years ago, something someone not even remotely connected to you did? And I just don't get it. I've never understood it. I think, do you know what? Be what you're going to be, do what you're going to do, yeah, but just don't piggyback off something that someone did decades and decades ago, because that doesn't even relate to you, in any sense.
Yeah, I think most people in that situation won't have even been educated about the colonial past of Britain.
Ooh, colonialism, you took it there, huh?
No, it's true though, isn't it? I mean,
it's so true.
It's true though, isn't it? They won't have an idea that what we as a when I say we British, as a nation did to get to where we are now, and the
absolutely,
the things involved there. But there has to be a balance. You can't distort history to suit yourself, because that's exactly what it's done to say. History belongs to the victors. They manipulate and change what history is based on what they feel like. That wasn't a drop mic moment, by the way.
That was two drop
mics.
I didn't even know what happened.
Here's a question for you, Ali.
Handy.
Would you ever or do you ever plan to move back home or to your ancestral home, like for as a permanent thing?
Yeah, truth be told, I've never, probably at any point in my adult life,
not thought that would be the case.
Decided to live here or stay here or remain here. I don't, I'm here out of need, and probably a bit want and the rest of it, but as soon as the opportunity arises or the circumstances are right, I'm happy to. I have a number of countries that I'd rather go to be honest, bro. A number, and I don't think the UK even features in my top 10. If you take away certain factors, I mean, we're born here, innit? We grew up here, we know it. For some reason, we've got it in our head that, we can get a job here or run a business here, but if we go abroad, what are we going to do? Like,
that happens to be a big one. That happens to be a big one, doesn't it?
And it's just getting over things like that. The truth is, people have businesses and jobs all across the world. I had a friend of mine. His parents moved to Australia. I used to be a store manager at a pizza place a few years ago, and he was one of our delivery drivers. And they were sort of from Australia, but he was born and bred here. Anyway, he bit the bullet and he went over for holidays a couple of times, and then he moved over. And I said, Tom, like, what's the sketch in it? Like, how does it work? This was when he was, he was back over, and he goes, Ali, honestly, he goes, I work here. I deliver Domino's pizza for like, was it £8 an hour or whatever it is, and I make this much. You've seen the car that I drive, the clothes that I wear, how I live, working weekends and late nights and overtime and all the rest of it, and I just pay my bills. And I was like, that's right. A pizza delivery guy in this country can't really live it up. You're working 50, 60 hours a week. Because if I do a very similar job over there, I can have a detached house and drive a truck.
Wow.
You know, like, I was like,
Yeah.
for real? He goes, yeah. He goes, the cost of living is just different over there. It just works out so differently. Like petrol and
Wow.
things is cheaper than water. Do you know what I mean? I was like, what are you
And this is
doing
in
here?
Australia. Isn't there
And this
like
was
a really high like criteria you have to meet to migrate to Australia? Is that
too much.
Canada?
Yeah. No, Canada and Australia, I think it works on a
Australia.
point system, and it is
Yeah.
difficult. And I can understand why they make it difficult, but it goes back to my point of we, it's just our own anxieties, our own, nerves and stuff that hold us back. The world it's a big place, but it's such a small place. Like
That is
you,
so true. I think taking the step is the biggest fear for most
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Everyone has certain kind of
We
ideals.
couldn't do what our parents did.
That's true. That's true.
We just can't. And
Yeah.
and I can't explain it, and most people our age won't be able to explain why they can't just get up and go to Australia or
Yeah,
to
but do you
Malaysia or
think
to,
do you yeah, but do you think it's because there was more of a need for our parents than there is for us now? We become too relaxed and we're sitting on our laurels.
I think so. I think that's probably a lot, that would explain a lot. But I mean, at our age, if we could have a much easier, more comfortable life in a better climate, why would you not? Do you know what I mean? Like our wants and our needs and our why. Our why is very different to what our parents was. For them, it was being
Mm,
able to eat or being able to
mm,
have, move from a mud hut into like a cement built house.
yeah.
But for us, okay, we're comfortable here,
Mm.
but we could have a detached house with a pool, and we could have 10 months of summer, and we could have strolls on the beach, or these things.
Nasreen says it came down to choice and they didn't have one. Interesting.
True,
I tell you what, I
true.
tell you what, I would like to have or practice my choice
Mm,
of living intermittently in different places as I grow older.
mm.
Saying to the kids that, once you're old enough to look after yourselves, that's it. And I'm not going to stay here all the time.
I would love to see that. I think a lot more of us should do that, because, yeah, you hear the odd, horror story, but there's a lot of success stories of people who have moved abroad.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and Yasser was talking about working remotely and stuff. Absolutely, why not?
Mm,
And even
mm,
if you can't work remotely, there are careers and jobs in other countries.
mm.
There's no need to, think Pakistan is my only option. If I'm going to move, it's going to be back home. It doesn't
A friend of
have to be.
ours, Habib, who went over to Turkey, he plans to migrate over to Turkey, says it's better than the UK in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And, the systems are better, the facilities are
Mm,
better. It's so much better in so many different ways. And he says, I plan to
yeah.
move there. And
Yeah.
I thought that was quite fascinating because if you think about somebody who was of Pakistani heritage,
Mm,
lived most of their lives here in the UK,
mm.
but wants to migrate to Turkey rather
Yeah,
than
absolutely. And the
Pakistan.
thing with Habib is, I love Habib, beautiful brother. He could have quite easily gone back to Pakistan, and he'd been just as well off, and he'd probably be living
Yeah.
even
But
more like a king.
more luxury, yeah.
you know. But he had his reasons. Turkey's
Mm,
a beautiful place. There's heritage, there's culture, there's
mm,
Islam there. There's that essence,
mm,
isn't there? That
mm,
that might be lacking in Pakistan.
yeah.
Um, and there's no reason why a
I
lot
think
more
one
of
of the other
us
thing was
can't do
there
that.
was still the multiculturalism there. There were Muslims
Yeah,
from all over the world who had settled there,
yeah,
whether it be white, black, Chinese,
yeah,
whatever. There were
yeah.
multicultural Muslims there. So
I'm not saying we can't. I'm not saying none of us can't. I'm just saying we find it's very rare for people in our age group or our generation to move around. Like, I became aware of a family who've just moved over from Spain
mm.
a couple of months back, and they said,
Yeah, there
"Look,
are a lot of
the
migrants from
only
Spain to the UK.
reason, yeah, they did hijrat
Yeah.
for one reason. They said, look,
Mm,
our kids, we're not going to be able to get an Islamic education in Spain. The infrastructure just wasn't there. They've come here, they've enrolled their kids into a private Islamic school, and they
Wow.
go, we have zero other reason for being here. The men
Wow.
of the family still go back every couple of months, running
Yeah.
business or whatever.
Yeah.
But they are here purely for the kids' education. They said the healthcare isn't better, the climate isn't better, the currency is not better, the house that we live in is not better, the food is not better, which I can believe that. But it's they just had no other reason. And I was like, you know what, I love you guys so much. I love your reasoning so much.
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Yeah.
us would not be able to do that.
The
You know,
bottom line is people will migrate for their own reasons. And if
yeah,
the reasons are for the dollar, for the money, for the pound, then
yeah.
that's the hole you're gonna end up, burying yourself in. But
Mm,
if the reason is for ethics, morals, religion, all that kind of stuff, then
mm.
really that's the plane you're gonna jump on and the clouds that you're gonna reach, isn't it?
This is it. This is absolutely correct. And I think we uh, will never be able to fully comprehend how difficult it must have been for our parents or grandparents. Like the steps that they took were monumentous, like
What about
absolutely
what
massive.
about the perspective of the dependents? So usually in our migrant communities, you have, especially the Asian migrant, South Asian migrant communities, you have the man of the house who needs to make sure the family is well fed and all that kind of stuff, and then they take
Mm,
the family with them. Now, if that person is here and then they
mm,
decide to migrate with the family, there's a lot to
mm.
think about. There's a
Mm,
lot of consultation to be taking place with the family, with the kid. Now, if the kids say, "Look, well, I don't want to move," then
yeah,
it's a catch-22, isn't it? It's a
yeah.
tricky situation. If the wife says, "I don't want to move," then that's another tricky situation. Or if your family, your mother
Hmm.
is with you and she doesn't want to move, mate, I have problems moving from the house that I live in here in the UK to another house in the UK because my mom doesn't want to move. Right? Never
Yeah,
mind moving a country.
yeah,
So there are a lot of things to think about before people migrate anywhere. It's not as
yeah.
easy as people think it is. So for someone to make that decision and take that
Mm,
step, you've got to applaud them because it's not
yeah.
it's not easy at all. Rizwan
It's
says
not
the
it.
key. Yeah,
Yeah, and you can only imagine it was maybe tenfold more difficult back then. There
yeah,
wasn't the technology. It
yeah,
wasn't. Yeah, it's fine. I'll just jump on a flight and I'll come back. I'm only 7 hours away. There was
yeah,
none of that. Once you
yeah,
leave that home, that family home, that village, that land, whatever,
yeah,
you not even able to look back for years.
yeah,
You're gonna miss, you know, uh, people leaving this world. You're gonna
mm,
miss, lost family members, new people coming into the world,
mm,
weddings, so much. Now, when you know you can get to any corner of the world quite easily now, and I think
mm.
most people can kind of afford it as well. If they had to travel,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you'd find a way to be able to make that journey.
yeah.
So I think we're just prisoners, like, of
Of
our
our own
own
minds.
mind. Yeah,
Mm,
that's what it
yeah,
comes down to, and that's a shame because you know our parents set us up in such a beautiful way, and they gave us such solid foundations,
mm,
and we've kind of got up and thought, oh, okay, appreciate that,
yeah.
pops. No, thank you for
Thanks,
that.
thanks.
Now
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put my
Thanks. I'll
feet up now.
enjoy that. I'll enjoy the fruits of your labor, and that's it. Yeah, and not
And
do
this is
anything
it.
else with it. I'll just
And
waste
not,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
This is it. Oh well.
that's another thing, though, isn't it? Have you? I mean, if you look at how hardworking the migrant community has been,
Mm,
you would think, having observed them, their children would have naturally become hard working or harder working, or at least been influenced by that, or motivated or inspired by that to further
mm,
themselves. Where you see I've seen, unfortunately, around us, a lot of, there have been some very good examples, but unfortunately,
mm,
there's been some very, very bad examples of the fathers. In fact, I think one of the reasons for that is that the breadwinners have been working so damn hard that lalage, that greed kicks in. They've worked
mm,
so hard, they've neglected the family and
mm.
the children's upbringing. And then when the children have gone off the rails, they're like, well, thanks.
Yeah.
That when it comes down to what you were saying, thanks, pops. And then they
Mm,
think, well, I worked my ass off for so many years so they could have a better
mm.
future. And what
Yeah.
have they done? They've just gone off the rails. They've just gone off the opposite way. There's that
Mm.
balance that has to be kept as well, isn't it?
There really is, and I think this is something that we've become more aware of recently. You know, our parents and grandparents probably weren't as aware that things can go this wrong. It's only because we've seen it unfold in front of our eyes.
No, I think you know what? I think they did. I think they did. They hoped that it didn't. If you think about how some of if you look at the reasons why people migrated, and then you look at the
Mm,
justifications on the application forms. I mean, I know of people who claim to be of a minority community that they would get they're fear for their lives so they can get
yeah,
asylum
yeah,
here, which actually takes them out of the fold of Islam. Like,
mm,
and you think, wow, you went to
mm.
that extreme to get here,
Yeah, it's
you
true.
know?
I know of such examples. Yeah,
And if
definitely.
and then you have to maintain that throughout a
Mm,
prolonged period of time. And then when your children can see that or relatives can see that,
mm.
these are really worrying things. What are you teaching these
So,
people, these kids?
something that sort of comes to mind now is, look, we've seen people uh, leave their ancestral home
Mm,
in search for a better life, not even for themselves, for
mm.
their loved ones, um,
I'd say it's both.
and never to return. So many have passed away in England, in Hong Kong, in Dubai, in
Mm,
Qatar, in wherever.
mm.
Um, and you think surely there has to be a wake up call at some point where we're like, you know what, that greed pit, you're never gonna fill that. You know, so
That's a very interesting thing. Sorry, carry on, and I'll tell you something.
where do you stop? Where do you strike that balance? Where do you think, okay, look, I'm gonna slow down, I'm gonna stop, let me uh be there for my wife and kids now. Let me just settle and breathe and let us just sort of become one again, you know?
Yeah, and this is
Um,
going to be. But the problem is, Ali, you also have people who are married with kids who want to take those risks. I was in Pakistan in 2000 and which occasion was this? It was an occasion not too long ago, and
mm,
I came across a friend of my brother-in-law, and he asked me when I came back. He asked me if I'd send him some money so to help him go abroad, and I said, "How are you going to get there?" And he goes, "On a dinghy." On a rubber dinghy. I'm saying, no, I ain't giving you money to do
mm,
that. Number one, well, not just one, but there are hundreds of reasons why I wouldn't want to help somebody do
mm,
something like that. Um, but on the same note, you also have people who migrate to countries where they think they would be at least respected. Do you know how
mm.
badly treated Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, people from Nepal, people from India are treated in the
By
Arab
the
world?
Arabs. Yeah.
It is disgusting. I've worked there,
Mm,
I've lived there, I've seen it firsthand. Alhamdulillah, I was
mm.
very fortunate because I was in a very good position. I was treated mm, very differently.
Yeah.
But you would think, just to think that people are being mistreated because
Mm,
of the color of their skin, the language, the nationality, where they come from. That
mm.
that
And
is what's determining how they're
yeah,
being treated.
mm,
How disgusting is that?
it is. And you know what makes it worse? Like what's just salt in the wounds of these people who have left everything is that they're quite often despised by people back home as well.
Mm,
Oh,
mm,
Valetia,
mm,
foreigner,
mm.
Ustra, don't do that. You don't know what this man goes through every day and the
Ali,
challenges.
there are people who I know of people who have taken massive loans of their own properties, like
Mm,
like mortgage their own properties, like gave it to a loan shark to get the
mm,
money to be able to get a visa and a ticket
mm,
to places like Saudi Arabia or Dubai to do
yeah.
construction work or really low paid
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Labor,
The
yeah.
only thing people see in their native countries is that this guy's out of the country, so he must be earning more. Conversion rates
Mm,
better. What they don't see is how these people are maltreated,
they
how
don't,
like
yeah.
12 or 15 of them sleeping in a 10 by 8 room. Um, how they don't even get, sometimes they don't even get the same good treatment as animals would. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
And if they
I'll give
die, what kind of compensation is given? And sometimes they're just buried and forgotten about.
yeah, off the grid. Yeah, I'll give you
That's
another
it.
example. Look, I told you at the beginning of my show that my father's been in Pakistan for 2 years.
Mm.
Now, the thing I didn't quite get around to saying is that he's so desperate to get out of there now. Like, for
Oh,
how many
why
months
though?
he's been saying, I cannot stand it here anymore.
Why
I said,
though?
Dad, what's up? I said, this is where you were born. This is
Yeah,
everything. This is your mitti. This is your land. You always talk
yeah,
about Pakistan, Pakistan,
yeah, yeah.
And he goes, Yaar, log nahi jeen dene. I was like, okay, what do you mean?
Wow.
He goes, the people here, they will not even let me live peacefully in my own house. I said, okay, what do you mean?
Mm,
He goes, they'll come to your house, they'll
mm,
sit with you, they'll ask you how you are. And then before you know it, such and such went 2 years ago. He's built a goatee. Such and such went only 3 years ago. He's got a factory. Thing he's got a BMW. Da, 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 da. You,
mm.
you've been there 40 years. Tusne
Oh,
char puttar hai. You got 4 sons.
yeah.
What have you done?
What have you done? Yeah.
And I said, Dad, somebody comes to your house, sits with you, drinks the tea that you're giving them, and then goes on this vibe.
Yeah.
And he goes, Puttar, I just say to these people that Alhamdulillah, till this day, I've
Mm,
never took a penny that wasn't, rightfully mine. I
mm,
don't owe anybody a single penny.
mm,
Everything that I've earned is through my own sweat and labor, hard work. I know and Allah knows. And
mm.
Alhamdulillah, I know what I've done and what I've achieved, and I'm more than content. But he goes, this scene keeps on playing out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and I'm like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
Someone comes home after 30, 40 years to say, okay, I'm going to put my feet up now. And you're going to go to that person and say, what have you done?
Yeah.
You know?
I actually had the same conversation with one of my cousins. I remember one of my cousins saying exactly the same thing to me about my family coming in the UK, saying that such and such a person's gone and they got this many houses, such and such a person's gone and got these many cars, and you know, what did your father do? And oh man, if only he knew what my father had actually done,
Mm.
without any knowledge about what my father, because my father and his father didn't really kind of see eye to eye for a number of years.
Mm.
So, he was, and I don't know, you know what? At the same time, he was trying to get a rishta of him marrying my sister. Like, I was thinking, bro, you're not playing it
Yeah,
properly here, are
exactly.
you?
Yeah. Pick your
Exactly.
side, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, you know what is this guy on? What is it? He had absolutely no idea about, what our financial standing is or anything like that. But he just made stuff from visibly what he could see
Yeah.
on pictures and stuff like that. And there are ethics, there are morals, and the way my father did things was, he was one of the most morally upright people. People even now still talk about him.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, and that's is great education. But I know where you're coming from with that. When people don't see
Mm.
things visibly, that you choose not to drive the most expensive car, even though you might
Mm.
be able to afford to. You choose not to live in a big mansion, even though you might be able to afford to. You choose
Mm.
not to go on so many holidays a year, even though you might be able to afford to. People build an impression, and they think that
Yeah.
everything that's valued is through the eyes. But that's true, though.
Mm.
People value things through what they can see. People buy with their eyes. They value
Mm.
things with their eyes, unfortunately.
Well, this is why, like, when you sort of meet someone, or when you hear of someone, or when you're told about someone,
Mm.
one of the first things you ask is, what do they do?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, even when
yeah,
you meet someone, you're like, okay, what do you do? Like,
yeah.
and and I think I read this somewhere that they only ask you that
Mm.
so they know how much respect to give you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I remember this really funny story, right? There was a relative of my, not even a relative, somebody who was from the same village of my brother-in-law, came to visit us here in Burton. And my brother-in-law asked him, so, Bajike Shugala, as in, what do you do, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, I think I told you this before. He says, I'm a hairdresser. My brother-in-law couldn't speak very well English at the time because he's just quite new here in the UK. He goes, "I'm a hairdresser."
Yeah.
He asked him again, "Sorry, kya matlab?" And he goes, "I'm a hairdresser." He just wouldn't say I'm anything else but a hairdresser. He wouldn't say barber. He wouldn't say. And
Yeah.
I was obviously a really little kid at the time. I didn't know, the difference. And I said to my brother-in-law,
Mm.
"Oh, oh, nahi hai na."
No,
Like,
yeah.
and not that there's anything wrong with them. I'm just saying in the
No.
Punjabi, that's what you would say it, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's a proud profession to be in. There's a lot to be proud of being a Nai. But
Mm.
it was a mental thing in his mind that if he said that, he would be perceived to be of a lower status of some kind. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like an inferiority complex. He just refused to say it in Punjabi because it has so many different connotations in the Punjabi language and culture as
Yeah.
well. So it's interesting that you say that because yeah, you're right. When people ask you what do you do, they're trying to figure out who you are, what do you have, what kind of what
Mm.
your status is before they have a conversation with you to decide how to converse with you.
Yeah.
And it is sad, and that's what happens in Pakistan. My brother's
Mm.
there now. He went over on Friday. Last Friday he went over to Pakistan.
Okay.
I was on a video call with him today. He was showing me the stuff that needs to be done to his house. And he was telling me before he left how so many amenities were within the near vicinity. And he was
Mm.
telling me how he would go out in the mornings, he would go and get juices of certain kind, he'll walk there, we're all in walking distance. And you know what the bottom line was? He says, "Maj, after all that, I get looked at in a really bizarre way because I'm a foreigner, but I walk it to their stores.
Mm.
Just because I walk and I don't take the car or I don't take
And,
public transport, just
and you
because I
know, the
walk."
thing is, if he went to the store in a black BMW 4x4,
Yeah.
they'd still look at him and say, "Oh, look at him,"
Yeah.
just because he's a foreigner,
Yeah.
just because of this. Is that whole example of was it the man and his donkey and his wife, isn't it?
Yeah,
This,
exactly. Yeah.
this is the thing. It's unfortunate. It really, really is unfortunate because you cannot just judge a person like that. You don't know their struggles. You don't. And I'll tell you where the career or the status thing doesn't apply is to drug dealers, or to insurance fraudsters or whatever,
That's so
because
true.
you'll give them the umpteenth respect.
Yeah.
Because they'll feed you nice and they'll do this and they'll do that,
They
and you
made
might,
it.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People back home use that as an example. Oh, he's only been there a year, but he's got this, this,
Yeah.
and this.
Yeah.
Like, bro,
Yeah.
come on, you know what he does. I know what he does.
Yeah,
Shall
exactly.
we just move on to something else? It's
Oh
yes,
goodness. I think it says we have become displaced from our original homes and have been trying to fit in ever since. And that's the point, isn't it? You know what? Displacement or dispositions. And, when I think one of the greatest tragedies and damages you could do to anybody, even on a psychological level, is to pull them out of any kind of a community feeling. When you don't have a sense of belonging anywhere, that is very damaging mentally because you are always watching your shoulder, you are always thinking of things and looking at things in a suspicious way, or you're being looked at in a suspicious way. There's a lack of trust. It is such a such a I can't even find the words to describe how dangerous a place that is, a space that is mentally, not to have a sense of belonging, whether it's with family, whether it's a community. And I'll tell you one thing, Ali, and anybody who's listening, one of the things that I've come to understand is when we don't have a community, this gives rise for people's downfalls in all sorts of ways, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's drugs related, even people taking drugs. There have been experiments done on this, by the way, where people who feel socially isolated or made to feel socially isolated tend to turn towards intoxicants and other things to fill that void. Now, as people or descendants from the migrant community, if we don't have that sense of belonging from where we originate from, and we don't have that true sense of belonging where we have ended up, then that's a slippery slope. And this is probably possibly even why
Mm.
we have so many people from migrant communities in certain communities, which can be visibly seen increasing. I mean, if you think about the young generation, if they don't feel that sense of connection at
Mm.
home, and they don't get that connection outside of the home, what are they going to turn to?
Mm.
Explains a
Actually,
few things, doesn't it?
very true. Yeah, very, very good point. Where
And
is
on that,
home?
and
Where
on
is
that,
home? I think. Uh,
where is home? Yeah, good question. I think it's like you said, Alec. It's cliched. Home is where the heart is. Question is, where
mm,
is the heart? That's the
yeah.
question, isn't it? Where is that heart? Is it okay? Well, here's an interesting point. So true, but I think the lack of belonging can also make you look for your Lord. Yes, you're right. Mariam was a very, very interesting point. Um,
It really can go either way.
it can go either way. That's what I was about to say. Yeah,
Yeah, it
it can
really
go either
can.
way. Yeah,
And I think there are.
but I like that. That's a positive thought, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's not an approach that I would encourage.
Mm,
But you're right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Sometimes you have to need to be at your lowest, you know, in
mm,
order to look up,
yeah. 100%.
and see the light and any other cliche that you can fit in there. You know?
Yes, indeedy. Right. So, you know what? This has been quite intense for a season finale. It's been an interesting conversation. I think it's one that needed to be had. I think from the perspective of somebody who is a descendant of from the migrant community or migrants, it's important for people who are natives to understand what others are going through.
Mm,
At the same time, of what they're thinking, if they really truly want to appreciate, the multicultural and culturalism that's being celebrated, because it's not as straightforward as people tend to
no.
think it is or would like to believe that it is.
Speaking of descendant,
Hmm.
if, would you even be able to trace back your lineage? Because there's a chance that you and Noyan, um,
We're related.
I'm not
Couldn't we have
saying,
before?
you
You
know,
know what? My son actually said that. Was it Musa or Isa? One of them two. Actually said that because we were talking about something. We were talking about lineage. We were talking about heritage. We were talking about being from the a Mughal, which means we're
yeah,
from the Mughal dynasty. Mughals came from Mongolian,
Mongolia.
Turkic, and so there is a chance that Noyan, Genghis Khan, they could have been my great,
Mm,
great, 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 whatever grandparents. Yeah,
true,
but hey,
true.
it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah,
Can you see the resemblance? Actually, you won't be able to tell.
we wouldn't know with it.
Not with the actor anyway. Yeah, exactly. Well,
But
you see loads of pictures and art of Genghis Khan, but yeah, it's true. It's the reality is you create. Look, Allah says, we have created not we've not created you, uh, except to in different tribes, except to recognize each other
recognize
and to
each other.
know
Yeah.
each other, and
Mm,
that's all it is. It's neither anything giving
mm.
one importance over the other. And the Prophet ﷺ in his last sermon, clarified that no black is more
Better
important
than
than a
what? Yeah.
white, or better than a
No,
white,
Arab
no
is better
Arab,
than a non-Arab. Yeah.
non-Arab. It's the same thing. It's across the
Mm,
board. And the reality is, I think when we talk about nations, we talk about sense of belonging. There is a higher sense of belonging when you belong to a family. I mean, obviously, people talk about the human family, but as a Muslim ummah, when you have that feeling of family
mm,
between you, that overrides any border. That goes beyond any nation or national love that you can
mm,
have. And for the sake of Allah, if that's where you are in that space,
mm,
then if you're true to that, then you would help your brothers and sisters. You'd help in humanity as well as in deen,
mm,
to do and uplift them in the best way possible. And that's really creating a community. and
mm,
and you know what, one of the things I'm really proud of is that in the Islamic ethos, there is a heavy emphasis of us being social creatures and helping communities and helping our own communities, not just communities of the way who look like us or sound like us, but communities where we live, irrespective of their deen and irrespective of their color. And this is the beauty of our deen. And we have much
Absolutely.
to be grateful for. We have much to be grateful for, and much to learn and much to improve upon. May Allah guide us
Inshallah.
all. I mean,
Amen.
and on that note, I mean, we've obviously extended this show with it being the season finale. We've had a lot of shy people around, just not wanting to show their mugs today. But alhamdulillah, this has been a very fascinating season 3 actually, because we've covered some very interesting topics in this particular season. Some which have given us some stick. We've got some stick from people. The feminist one was a classic one. If you haven't watched that one, go back and watch that at some point. Becky says we can carry on for another hour. I'm learning loads here. Thanks, Becky. Thank you for your support as always.
It really is one of those subjects, isn't it, that you could just go on and and I suppose to each person sort of listening, there'll be something or the other that they can either relate to or that
Yeah,
they can
yeah,
learn from.
yeah,
There's so
yeah.
much, so
Or
many
teach us
untold
something
stories.
we can learn from as well. Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It really has been such a nice topic to finish on, and it's easily one that we could come back to again. There's so many angles to this.
absolutely. And I'm always learning from our audience as well. Nigget is a classic example. She says she's a brilliant finale. Thank you. And I have learned a great deal too. Thank you so much. And thank you for your continued support. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully, when we start season 4, we'll have some more interesting topics to bring into the conversations. If you have any ideas, feel free to drop them to us as form of a message. We do also have our social media handles. If you haven't already joined, we've got the Beardos Media Instagram. We're on Twitter. Although, Ali, we don't use Twitter much, do we? I think we need to up our game following in that next season. We have Facebook group for Beardos Media. We hopefully drop some exclusive content in there in the future. We have some plans, by the way. We've not made them public. We have some plans for Beardos Media, which we're working on in the background. And hopefully they come to fruition very soon. We hope you have enjoyed our show so far. We've had very, very good interaction over the last couple of years. It's been over a year now since we've, I think it's been almost 2 years now.
It's coming up to 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, so this is season 4 that we are coming close to. Thank you so much for your comments. We will also read them all back as soon as we get the opportunity. Yes, a bit like Hajj, amazing feeling with the sea and a river of people of different colors. Alhamdulillah. Yes, thank you very much for your support to continue. So please do continue supporting us. Look, if you're watching this, go onto our YouTube channel because we've never really pushed that. Go onto our YouTube channel and subscribe to that one, or hit like and subscribe, or whatever you do on that YouTube channel.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I haven't got the right terminology because we've not really pushed it. So we would really appreciate that. And like I said, if you have any interesting topics which you feel could be discussed, one thing you might have noticed is on Beardos Media, we usually discuss things which people sometimes think about but they don't want to talk about, which make interesting conversations, and hopefully we tackle them in a way which we can openly have these conversations and talk about them in a mature manner without getting too emotional about certain things. And if emotions arise, then they arise, but hopefully they're done in an educational way. But that being said, from me, it's a heartfelt thank you once again, and those will be my closing words for tonight. Ali, do you have anything to say?
No, I think you've covered it. It's 3 seasons complete of something that we wanted to do for a long time. I think Majid, wanted to do for even probably longer than I did. It was just something that we once spoke about, that we should, and here we are, 3 seasons, and it really has been fantastic. I never imagined that so many people would sort of sit in the comfort of their own homes or wherever they are around the world and listen to us, and want to hear from us and talk to us and engage with us. And it's such a blessing to be able to do this, just this platform with all you guys we appreciate it probably more than we can sort of show. And to all of the people that don't comment or never partake, but you're there. We know you're there. The love is mutual. So yeah, inshallah, keep listening, keep following. Like Majid said, if you can get over to the YouTube channel, because eventually at some point we probably will come away from Facebook and Instagram, etc., and just focus on our sort of YouTube content. I want to say TikTok, but I don't know. Is that
No. Listen,
come on,
I'm
come
not
on.
good on TikTok. Listen, you take it to
Okay.
talk to you.
Do you guys want to see us on TikTok? Do you want to see us?
Look at the way he's even asking you. Do you guys?
Do you want to see us do 60-second sketches, 30-second sketches? Do you want to see Maj do voiceovers?
Oh, voiceovers.
No, not them kind of voiceovers. But I think what, that's the way of the world now. And honestly, nowadays everything is a Snapchat, everything is a TikTok, everything's a flash in the pan. And for us to come and engage for an hour, sometimes over an hour, and for you guys to support us through that and bear with us and be with us, it's what, we love you guys so much. Honestly, it's amazing. It's amazing.
100%. Is that it?
Chaliye fir. Chalo.
Bas ho gayi.
Bas ho gayi. I'm gonna get emotional in a minute, man.
I'll throw you some. I'll buy you a dessert.
I feel better now.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Until next time, over and out.